but I will next time. Having a terrible hair day, to be quite honest.
On that note, I want to welcome everybody to the Saturday night special of The World According to That Man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We want to welcome you on this Saturday night. Everybody that's going to be in the chat, everybody that will be listening to this show after they download it. We are humbled and we thank you. It means the world to us. Before we start the show, I just want to pray for all the servicemen and women who are out there. And I want to send thank you to all their families from the bottom of my heart. I pray for you, and we all are praying for you. So thank you for your service, and thank you for your families, and may God bless you all. And on that note, we are joined tonight from the man who knows how to live off the grid better than a grid specialist, from the simplelifenow.com founder, Gary Collins. And we are overjoyed. Oh, you had to take off the hat. Now I can see the hair.
Oh, I mean, the hair's not that bad, but I thought it looked better, and now I'm really self-conscious about it.
No, you look great. You look great.
My curls are really coming in to themselves.
Remzo, you look great. And from On the Run with Remzo Martinez.
What did you call him? On the Run?
I always get that off. It's
very lactose intolerant. Stop reminding people.
From the great podcast, On the Run with Remzo Martinez. And of course, Second Print Comics, right? And Second Print Comics podcast. But of course, the show wouldn't be complete without America's humble servant, actor, writer, provocateur, saint, sinner, lover, father, mathematician, statistician, mathematician, but most importantly, Dr. Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
But he doesn't take Medicaid.
I don't take Medicaid. I don't take Medicare. I don't take any insurance. I don't have any patients.
God, how I missed that.
And I will tell you, if I may, I have had no malpractice suits ever against me.
And on that note, I want to get right to it. You have this, I don't even want to call him by his name, but Biden saying, we don't forget and we don't forgive. Now, I'll tell you what not forgiving and not forgetting is, Ben Stein. After the Munich Games, Golda Meir set in motion an operation called the Operation Wrath of God. And before each assassination of the people that assassinated the Jews, the Israelis in Germany, they would send each family flowers with a condolence card reading, a reminder, we do not forget and we do not forgive. Now that is a real targeted strike, Ben Stein, not to supposed ISIS fighters. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was, those people were unspeakably horrible. And I must say, I don't think most people realize the incredible guilt of the West Germans in that horrible, horrible tragedy, whereas the West Germans really screwed it up terribly. And the Israelis kept saying, if you would just step back a couple of paces, we can handle this and take care of this. We're used to dealing with these maniac killers. And the West Germans said, oh, no, come on, you're talking killing. We're West Germans. Of course, we know how to kill. So, and the West Germans screwed up every detail of it, every single detail. And that's what got the Israelis killed. And it's just unimaginably sad. And it's great that the Israelis are following up on it. And I think now the terror in Munich was, I believe, in '72, and I think the Israelis are still hunting.
They ended it and they started it again. Then they started it again. But to the bigger point, Ben, when we talk about striking at the heart, when we talk about Biden, what was the word he used? A certain type of strike. We're going to have focused strikes. There's no.
Oh, I hope and pray he didn't say surgical.
I think he might have. Gary Collins and Remzo said surgical. He might have said surgical strikes.
Because I know surgery,
and they ended up killing two ISIS, whatever you want to call them, members. I can't even believe we're talking about ISIS again. But they killed two members who they won't say their names. The reason why, they don't know their names.
Nobody's. They're out getting gas, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
But I me and you were talking a little bit about this Here's where the Democrats just crush the Republicans in all phases of the game. They have been doing this for a couple decades now. They know branding, they know marketing, and they know PR. They're really good at it. ISIS-K is not by accident. They remember that they said ISIS was the JV team, and they just so happen to be cutting off people's heads left and right. No big deal. And grew very rapidly, and that they had to eat all those words. ISIS got out of control. So now ISIS is coming back. Well, they never went away. They were pretty weak. Trump had pretty much beat them back. So they know, and it's the same thing with wokeism and CRT. They play this word game, and it's branding. It's to get you off topic. It's to soften the edges of evil. ISIS-K sounds very, very different. It sounds soft. It's got a different edge to it.
Sounds
they
like
know
a breakfast cereal.
Exactly.
That's what I've been saying. It sounds like
ISIS-K with extra fiber.
with extra explosions.
Lower your cholesterol, Allah Akbar.
Or it makes you love people like ketamine. But it's really interesting how they did that, though. That was done on purpose. Like I said, done on purpose. And Mr. VP of drone president, guess what he goes and does? His idea of getting back is putting up a drone again. What an ass clown. I mean, and what is the deal about 95% of the people being evacuated are Afghans? Then you've got veterans. Remember me saying this. I said, watch. Civilians are going to have to go in and clean up their goddamn mess. And that's exactly what's going on right now. They're not talking about it. The civilians and all these veterans will end up evacuating more people than this group of dipshits the whole time, and they'll take credit for it. Everything I said is coming true. I'm pissed.
It's scary, and it's depressing as hell. And I do believe very much in forgiving and forgetting, but I also believe in justice. And I think when people are killing innocent people, that the process of law is that they are either executed or they are imprisoned for life, and that doesn't seem to me to be that hard to understand. And by the way, if anyone thinks that we're through with the killing there, that's a joke. They're never through with the killing in Afghanistan. They're never through with the killing in Detroit. They're never through with the killing in Baltimore. They're never through with the killing in Los Angeles. They're never through with the killing in Chicago. People like to kill. A certain kind of person likes to kill.
Yes, especially Remzo in that region, where killing is like eating breakfast. And I wanted to bring up
ISIS-K for breakfast.
ISIS-K for breakfast. That's the name of the show
new
tonight.
Flavors: chocolate, strawberry, and Death to America.
That's right.
That's the name of the show tonight. ISIS-K for breakfast. But Remzo, you talk about these surgical strikes. So Biden, who is against every really good surgical strike we've done, if you want to use the word surgical strike, he was against bin Laden. He was against Soleimani. He was against, I believe, Baghdadi. So he was against all the right types of people you go after. And I mean by that, these were the masterminds of the network. He's going after, we don't even know who the Pentagon's going after, Remzo, because we've gotten 90 different messages from the State Department, the White House, and the Pentagon.
I don't want to butt on Remzo's time. Remzo's hair is taking up his time. But with all due respect, we're back where we were January 20th, 12:01 a.m. PM. We don't know who's in charge, and they don't know who's in charge. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And now it's getting to the point of just complete chaos. I pity them. I mean, I have a very, very wonderful friend in Philadelphia named Ona Murdoch Hamilton, a wonderful, wonderful young woman. She's actually the same age as I am, so she's not that young. So she says,
she's young at heart.
She says Biden is a great guy, but a bit naive. Well, that's one way of putting it. That's one way of putting it. Just like those people who are in the homeless shelters are great guys, but they're a bit naive.
Well, Ben, the devil was just misunderstood.
Right.
Remzo hasn't been here for ages. Let Mr. Milwaukee in.
I don't think ISIS-K is real.
I don't.
That's a good point.
You got a good
Explain
point.
that a little bit, because you're talking about a false
point.
flag, Remzo.
Well, I don't think that necessarily that when I say that, I don't mean like it's entirely fabricated, but I was really thinking about this, and I remember al-Zarqawi, who was basically the baby daddy for ISIS. And al-Zarqawi, prior to the invasion of Iraq in 2003, was a pimp and an arms dealer and a drug dealer who couldn't read or write. And it wasn't
Wait a minute, wasn't he called the mastermind?
Yeah, absolutely.
He was, but here's the thing. What ended up happening was, as soon as we went ahead and toppled Saddam Hussein's regime, and then Al-Qaeda in Iraq starts to go ahead and take up territory, what they ended up doing was he was like a regional guy. So imagine him like the manager at a local McDonald's. And then, because he was one of the guys that more people were talking about when the CIA was spying on Al-Qaeda, trying to understand who all the major leaders are, what we did in order to justify additional ground troops was we basically said that there's this guy over here, and he's absolutely the worst human being ever, and he is the leader of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Now, what they weren't incorrect about this. They actually fraudulently said that he was the leader of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. At that point, everyone was going around and they were like, Zarqawi's not, but maybe we should all listen to him, especially since the Americans fear him. And it was us who basically made al-Zarqawi the giant leader he was. So we actually gave him the gravitas to unite all the Al-Qaeda cells in Iraq to go ahead and lead us through a decade of hell. And, eventually that's what sprouted off Al-Qaeda in Iraq, ISIL, ISIS, that went ahead and brought in al-Baghdadi, who became more of the figurehead after we killed al-Zarqawi in 2006 in Baghdad. And as I'm looking around at this, I'm like, would I assume that the same people were around then, or the same people around now, and as we need an excuse to say that we're being overpowered and we're dealing with a sophisticated force, wouldn't it be weird if they had a track record of saying that people who aren't that big of a deal are really a big deal in order to justify further actions or to justify their own mistakes? I think that ISIS-K might exist in like some chat rooms amongst jihadists, but I don't think ISIS-K is the sophisticated terror network that's on par partnering with the Taliban.
I wonder if any of them is a sophisticated terror network. I mean, we're not talking about Nazi Germany here. We're not talking about the Soviet Union. We're talking about a group of people who look quite, when you look at them, they sure don't look like they're particularly sophisticated or well organized, although I guess they are. I mean, they've just accomplished something quite amazing. But look, it's not that amazing to accept the surrender of a superpower. I mean, we are a superpower by many standards, but if we walk up to their door and say, "Sirs, we would like to surrender," it doesn't really take a great genius to say, "Okay, fine, we'll just chop your heads off now, and you're surrendered." I mean, if we're offering to surrender, how much of a genius is they say, "Okay, fine, you're surrendered"?
Absolutely, that's absolutely a great point. We have given up. I was looking at the ages of the soldiers that got killed, and for the most part, at least more than a few of them, Ben Stein, weren't even alive when the war started. We're talking about babies that died a few days ago, and it's really like, you're right. We're exactly in this. You know what? We're actually in a worse scenario.
Way worse.
Because
way worse.
They have our bases, they have our weapons, they have, I'm sure, some forms of technology, and they have Russia and China probably and Turkey jumping in to help them. I mean,
Pakistan.
I would include everyone but Russia. I think Russia might be facilitating it because they see it as, the Americans are moving out. We might as well, shape the environment in a way, but I don't think they're going to be as proactive as China.
Well,
no, I do agree with that.
One thing is clear. We've just been kicked the hell out of there after a huge effort. And by the way, at some point, we reached what we physicians call an inflection point, which is a point at which we just said, okay, well, we're leaving now. But there was never any reason for us to say we were leaving. I mean, there was never any clear sign that the people we were fighting against had been beaten or had given up. There was no sign that this was the end. I mean, the New York Times had a story a few days ago saying they had surrendered and offered to give up, but that was clearly a fraud at the time because they were still fighting and killing people. There never was a reason for either the Republicans or the Democrats to say, we're leaving. This is it. We're leaving. Al-Qaeda just one day woke up and said, what? They're leaving? Okay, then we'll take over. I mean, it's like people always say, oh, Hitler, clever, super clever guy. And in some ways he was. He masterminded the taking over of Germany. No, the Social Democrats and all the other centrist parties turned it over to him. They turned it over to Hitler. His share of the vote was falling, and they turned it over to Hitler. Doesn't take that much of a genius to say, okay, if you're surrendering, I accept your surrender. I mean, we were beaten morally. We had no more moral head of steam left. Well, how that happened, I don't know. Somehow it happened under Trump, and it also happened under Bush, and it happened under Obama, and it happened under everybody. We just gave up. And why? I've never been sure. We weren't losing that many men. We could easily afford the cost of it. I mean, this country is so rich, it's insane. And why did we give up? I never understood that.
Well, the first casualty of war is a good plan. And, you know, I part of me is thinking, like, how would this have been too different under Trump? I don't think Trump, if he had won a second term, I think he would have taken us out of Afghanistan. I think he would have, because he promised to do that. I don't think he would have set up the timetable that Biden had. But, you know, I also, like, everyone basically knew that the Afghan National Army was not, you know, this giant, robust fighting force that they said it was. You know, not to play devil's advocate at all, but like they gave up in less than a weekend. Like I bought a gallon of milk the day that we started to have planes lift off, and then the Afghan government basically fell apart, and the milk is still in my fridge.
Oh, but what made us decide to give up? I mean, there was no surrender by them. In wars,
I mean, it wasn't giving up though. I mean, we said we were going to leave.
In wars, well, if you're leaving, you're giving up. If you're not fighting anymore, you're giving up. I mean, what more evidence could there be that you're giving up than to leave the battlefield, than to walk away from the battlefield and leave all your equipment behind for the enemy?
The idea was that the Afghan National Army was competent.
But we knew that. But we knew they weren't. I mean, this was even. There was no news apparatus. Even the most left wing, even the most right wing, even the most centrist, nobody said they were competent.
So I don't think you and I disagree, but I don't think you and I disagree. I think the big thing though is like, were we supposed to stay there longer, or were we supposed to just like never leave? And that brings it far different.
I think we're supposed to never leave and just keep it on a low boil.
Is that winning though?
No, and one of our colleagues, I don't think it was Gary, it was another fellow who always drinks on the air. He said, "Well, what would it have looked like to win in Afghanistan?" I don't know what it would look like, but it wouldn't look like this catastrophic, tail between our legs, running for our lives, pleading and begging with these terrorist killers to let us escape with our lives. It would not look that bad. You know what? Wars can go on for a very, very, very long time. The British were fighting insurgencies in India, their colony of India, for over 100 years, way over 100 years. And when they finally left, it was not with their tail between their legs.
Gary, well, I mean, let's look at all these countries that fought for hundreds of years, and they all collapse eventually.
Yeah, well, we're not going to collapse. I hope we're not going to collapse, and we have collapsed. It sure doesn't. Up here in North Idaho, it sure as hell does not look like we've collapsed.
Well, we're missing some points here. First of all, the difference was, like I said, you had Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, who are great at the military-industrial complex. Old Bush kind of created it with Rumsfeld and Cheney. They helped accelerate it. What happened with Afghanistan was, I've always said, it was a huge money suck. It was where contractors were raking it in left and right. That's why this war kept going. And you guys got to remember, when Trump came in, he called out the military industrial complex and the deep state and got his ass in a ton of trouble. That's what started getting him impeached, because he pissed off the wrong people. He wanted to get out because he saw what was going on financially. He saw it for what it was. He was trying to extract us out in order to save money and lives. He did not have the same philosophy that we're seeing now. He was not going to abandon Afghanistan. There was going to be a remote base still there. There was still going to be people on the ground, but we were going to take the bulk of the soldiers and people and our hardware out. That was the goal, because we had to do that. We had to extricate it and downsize it to get all these goddamn contractors out of there that have been sucking off the tit of the American public for decades now.
But
And that's what he was trying to do.
Gary, it's a hell of a big tit. I mean, American big tit is a very big tit. They can suck on it forever. Anything would be better than the disgrace we're looking at now. I mean,
But
the amount of money
everybody's
we're talking about is pennies compared with what the disgrace we're looking
Well, that's
at
what I
now.
mean, though. That Ben, you just proved my point. They went back to old school. They went back to, hey, why do you think people don't know? Billions and billions of dollars of our equipment was disappearing all the time,
Yes.
going nowhere, and the contractors were ditching it on purpose. I've heard that from people who were on the ground, who I was talking to. There was shit going on there that was so absolutely criminal. It was outrageous.
I
And so
don't
what
doubt it
happened
at
was,
all.
what happened was when Biden got back in with all of his dipshit cronies, the deep state went, we're back in power. So they created this vacuum. And now what's going to happen is now we're in a shit bag. Now we've created this massive vacuum that we can't get out of. So he's going to abandon people. He's going to get a ton of blowback. So now we're going to have civilians, veterans going over there. People are going to get killed. The public's going to blow their mind. And now we're going to have to jump back in with 25,000 troops again, do a surge, clean house again. All the contractors are going to get trillions in contracts again. It's all going to start over again. This is about money and corruption. That's what this is all about. There's incompetence involved because it's Joe Biden. Obama's words, never underestimate Joe Biden to fuck it all up. But, you know, whose
words are those?
Obama.
Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a direct quote from Obama.
Yeah.
And Ben, just to reset a little bit, we're not, none of us are, for the most part, it's the way this shit went down. You know, a timetable or whatever it was that Joe Biden was trying to do, or a self-imposed timetable, we left the wrong way, obviously. If we were going to leave, we left
Judah,
it in.
Do you realize that he reset the timetable? He had negotiated with the Taliban that we would be out by 9/10, right before 9/11, right?
Yeah. So he could have a 9/11.
He renegotiated. He's such a dipshit. He renegotiated with himself and reset it to August 31st. And the Taliban went, you're stuck. That's the date. You're screwed. Get out. And he went, okay. And here we are.
But Ben, one of my favorite, not my favorite, but one of my favorite things is that every deal that Trump entered us in, every agreement he got out of. Now I love that he blames Trump for setting a timetable. So the one thing that he decided of Trump's to keep, he blames on, with everything else, he goes back. But with this, he couldn't maneuver and extend. And that's it's really a frightening thing, Ben Stein.
It's the whole look. Let me say, frightening is the word frightening applies to everything having to do with the Democrats. I mean, they frighteningly attacked the First Amendment, terribly frighteningly. To think that the government, which is really in bed, they're basically making a porn movie with the big internet giants, that they're in bed with the internet giants and putting it, and the threesome is is the Taliban, but Trump
There's more of a
can't get on.
gangbang than a
and
threesome.
Trump can't get on the air. That's unbelievable. This guy was the nominee of the Republican Party, and they're not letting him on the air. That's absolutely unbelievable.
Well,
It's
they're scared to
incredible.
death, Ben,
Of
of
course,
jelly
they're scared.
beans.
They're scared to death of the true feelings of the voters of the United
Yeah.
States of America, and that a jihad, a Marxist KGB scourge of people who are sightseeing in the Capitol, not doing anything violent at all, and while letting the people who burned down many of America's largest cities escape scot-free. That's unbelievable. It's incredible what's going on in this country. That's why my wifey and I love being up in North Idaho.
And watching Perry Mason.
And watching Perry Mason. In Perry Mason, he figures it all out and the right things happen.
And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to a lively conversation on the world according to Ben Stein. And since Remzo's here, Remzo could tell you everywhere you could find us.
Have you had a hard time shitting recently? I know I have, but I recently changed my cereal to Isis K's. They come in strawberry, chocolate, fibromyalgia, vanilla, and Death to America. Isis K, because Cheerios got boring. But you know it doesn't get boring? The show. Go ahead and make sure you subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you can listen to it across Al Gore's amazing internet. And if you need more Ben in your life, because who doesn't, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to his newsletter at at benstein.substack.com. That's benstein.substack.com. Brought to you by Isis K.
I want to welcome everybody back to the world according to Ben Stein. And Remzo informed me that our Substack is in the 10 percentile, which is a great job, Remzo Martinez. So way to go,
I married
Remzo.
Isis on the 5th day of May, but I could not hold on to her very long. So I cut off my hair and I rode straight away to the wild unknown country where I could not go wrong.
Oh, speaking of which, by the way, there are quite a few people that do have the name ISIS, and I am sure they were so grateful when Trump destroyed ISIS. Now their name is back in the news as Isis K. They had a very big reprieve under Trump, but they've lost it. And Ben Stein, I want to get to a little bit local. We do have a recall election going on in the state of California. I want to get to this quickly. You are seeing them trying to destroy Larry Elder.
A really great guy.
If people are unfamiliar with the Los Angeles Times story the other day, they called him a white supremacist in blackface.
Supremacist.
White supremacist in blackface. Thank you, Mrs. Levin.
How does that work?
What?
You know, just to ask that shows what a racist you are.
That's exactly right. You, Remzo Martinez.
Yes, Remzo.
Put the emphasis on Martinez. And Ben, this goes to show you there is no depth to their depravity. Is that the right word? What they will do. I mean, because it's getting so tedious and boring. They've called people Nazis and this and the cancel culture and the whole woke thing. I really do think people are starting to go, oh, this is just tedious. You guys suck. And to prove that point, Greg Gutfeld on Fox News has the number 1 nighttime.
Wow.
He beat,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he beats Kimmel, Colbert, and Jimmy Fallon in the nighttime in that time slot. Ben Stein.
That's great. Because he tells the truth.
But think about that. Fox News has the number 1, but it's more than that. People are sick and tired of listening to these people, opine, have no sense of humor. And I think people, for the most part, the American people, I pray, Ben Stein, that they've woken up.
Well, of course, that we want a woke culture. But, Greg is a very, very smart guy, a terribly smart guy. He's not afraid to tell the truth. I mean, likewise, Tucker, not afraid to tell the truth. Likewise, Hannity, not afraid to tell the truth. We have, on the other hand, some of these people. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel is one of my best friends, and he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. But he is part of the Washington swamp, and it's a very, very unfortunate thing. It's a great thing that Gutfeld is now the leading nighttime show because people are looking for truth. We'd like to see some truth.
Well, I have a question with Jimmy Kimmel. I'm confused. I'm really confused by this. He's really good friends, obviously, with Adam Carolla. He's good friends with you, Ben. And the shit that comes out of that guy's mouth, and everyone tells me he's a really nice guy. And I go, but the things he says are so just not nice.
I know I'm never going to say a bad word.
He'll never say. And I had the opportunity to meet him quite a few times, and he is a really nice guy. And he's a very sweet guy, and he's a very good guy. But I want to get more on it. I don't want to talk about anybody in particular, but this hit job, Ben Stein, it's almost like with Trump and any outsider, they want to put them on notice. If you dare to run against the swamp, you will be accused of every atrocity known to man. So on Wednesday, if people aren't familiar with this, a woman who Larry Elder was dating in 2015, I guess they broke up. They were engaged. She went to the police because now it was at the right time. She felt safe to come to the police 6 or 7 years later at this point, Ben, and bring up that supposedly, he was high on weed, which makes everybody want to pull out a gun. And he pulled out a gun, and it was just happened to be, the safe time to do it, Ben Stein.
Yeah, well, I can't even describe my loathing for the LA Times. I mean, to think there's nothing that they won't say to a smear a conservative, as a black conservative who defies all the rules of the road, because everyone knows that the blacks have been so oppressed by us white racists. I don't know if Jews can be considered white.
By Remzo the most.
Mainly.
You are.
Yeah.
We know about Heil Hitler.
Yeah.
So anyway, we are, as those of us, I'm in North Idaho right now, but when I'm in LA, we are in the grip of a newspaper, the LA Times, which is so opposed to the truth. It's a joke. It's like a comic book of anti-truth every day.
So yeah, that was just something I just wanted to bring up, Remzo, because I think it's really important, this recall election we have going here.
Very important. I have contributed to Larry Elder. Wifey and I have voted for Larry Elder. He's great. He's really great.
Yeah, I think you all are fucked. I think Newsom's gonna not only stay in power, but he's gonna come back with a vengeance. I would leave California.
Yeah, I would leave California.
Well, sure. Ben's in Idaho.
A decade plus ago.
But Ben's in Idaho. But on the upshot, you're right. It's going to be really hard to beat Gavin Newsom, because there's always, when it comes to jelly beans, there's always extra jelly beans out there that Ben Stein that go unchecked, go unnoticed, get left in drug dealers' cars. With weapons, a lot of jelly beans out there that the state of California could issue, Ben.
I know, but the state of California has the best climate in the world, B, the best salmon in the world, the absolutely number one best salmon fillet in the world, Schooner Bay salmon, the best salmon fillet in the world, the absolutely number one cutest girls in the world. What more could you ask?
Absolutely nothing. And that's on that Larry Elder. So get out there, support Larry Elder. If you can, donate to Larry Elder. If you could get a job at a nursing home, please get a job at a nursing home. And remember, collect all the jelly beans you can at that nursing home. Those jelly beans, California needs them. So, but I want to get back, obviously, to the situation going on, Gary Collins, and obviously to Ben, but also they are now saying there's they're expecting a terrorist attack to happen in Kabul.
Well, they've been expecting that for a long time now.
Wait, no shit.
Yeah.
No kidding.
That's very funny.
They're geniuses. They're absolute geniuses,
Look, let me just tell you, by the way, while we're all being so Debbie Downer about everything, right after our show is over, I'm going to get in my car, and it's a Chevrolet, it's a very modest car, and I'm going to drive over and get some yummy goat cheese salad and some yummy trout for my friend Bob, and we are going to eat it and have a very nice meal and we're not going to worry about the Taliban just for a few hours.
But you're right. It's a good point. It's not the Taliban I'm worried about, to be honest with you, Remzo and Gary. It's not the Afghanis I'm worried about. It's our troops. That's who I'm worried about
They're
right now.
supposed to fight. That's their job. Would you?
But we're not letting them fight.
We're not. That's actually.
Wait a second. Is that true? We're not.
Yeah, of course we're not letting them fight.
Wait a minute.
It's stand down to prevent additional retaliation.
So you mean to say that if they see a guy driving by in a Toyota truck with a 20 millimeter automatic cannon right next to them, they're not allowed to shoot back?
If they're shot at, they could shoot back, but they're in a situation where it has to be for like life or death purposes. So if someone's pointing a gun at you, typically it used to be that if it's within a reasonable situation where you've been under fire, where you're in a high threat level environment, you can justify a preemptive shooting in that case. But right now, what they're basically saying is, and this is how, this is really complicated. They know that they're going to be under attack, but what they don't want is an ISIS justified a Taliban justified retaliation, which at that point, it's like, well, they will justify just about everything, but it's primarily this idea, if the bad guys are about to storm you from a block away, and that's where they're fortifying themselves so they can get a whole bunch of people out to, get together and mob rush you, you can't go out there and kill them. You got to wait for the mob to come over. That's what makes it different.
That is bad, and we should be we should not have a stand down. Obviously, we're in a combat situation, and a stand down is not the right idea. But we haven't had any right ideas about fighting this war for quite a while.
I've got this thing that worries me. Like right now, everyone is really focused on the day-to-day of this, but what I'm really scared about is what's going to happen later. I have this feeling, and this is just entirely me, but I have a feeling that what's going to happen is we're no longer going to talk about Middle Eastern threats. We're no longer going to talk about combat operations throughout the world. What's going to happen is, because we saw some American Marines die and soldiers die and contractors die, everyone has basically seen, it's like everyone will universally be against you and point the finger at you when our people die. So what they're going to say is, okay, no more of our soldiers are going to die. What I'm afraid is going to happen is we're going to enter a new stage of warfare in which it's going to be primarily done through drones, and we're going to see the further privatization of war. Because who was one of the first people to get actively involved with selling $6,500 seats to evacuate Kabul? Eric Prince, formerly of Blackwater. His contracting firm is there. And he's basically said, we could be here all day. We could be here forever. He was the person who said 5 years ago that if need be, he could be the emissary of Iraq, the emissary of Afghanistan if NATO wanted him to. What I think is going to happen is you're going to have all the Eric Princes of the world get together with the CIA and the military-industrial complex, and they're going to say, this isn't worth losing an American soldier. This isn't worth losing an American Marine. No, when they die, everyone cares, but when we die, no one cares. So pay us $1 trillion, and we'll fight your wars for you. And when we can't do it, we'll go ahead and direct the drones, we'll collect the intelligence, we'll go ahead and develop relationships with the local assets and turn all the intelligence over to you, and you can go ahead and drone strike them. Because America doesn't care when 20 civilians die in these foreign places either, because they don't speak English. I think that's what's going to happen.
Look, we don't know what's going to happen, but that's as good a hypothesis as any. Let's just say, for right now, we know we've got to figure out some way to get as many Americans out of there as possible. And we've got to figure out some way to get as many Afghans as helped us out of there as possible. And in the meantime, we're being invaded from the south by a huge army of undocumented aliens carrying God only knows what germs and viruses and so forth. Nobody's doing anything about that since Trump left office. What about that? I mean, we have an invasion of the U.S. going on right now, and nobody's doing anything about it ever since Trump left office. We're just pretending it's not happening.
No, you're completely right. We're pretending everything, Ben Stein, is not happening. We're pretending our gas prices aren't surging. We're pretending there's no murder that Chicago looks like a video game every week, a video game of death every weekend. Nothing matters. Absolutely, to this regime, it almost seems like absolutely nothing matters, Ben Stein.
I know. Well, I think there's something to that. Nothing matters except a certain agenda.
Yes.
Let's break that down, or unpack it, as we used to say in law school, which is we have a group of feminists in the Congress. They call themselves the Squad or something similar to that. They are saying nothing, absolutely nothing about the fact that there's going to be a Sharia law in Afghanistan, and women can be raped at will by any man who feels like doing it. That little girls can be raped at will by any man who feels like doing it. And that means nothing to them. They're not saying a word about that. Whereas if a governor of a state looks at a woman from head to toe, that's reason to kick him out of office.
Oh no, Ben.
I think he went below the head and toe.
Yeah,
but
Ben,
below the head and toe.
Well, I mean, he went all over. If we're getting real specific.
Okay. So he looked at them.
Supposedly.
No, there was more.
He looked at them.
He was getting.
You know what? He was looked at them, and maybe he did touch their breath. I haven't seen it proved in a court of law.
As George Bush once said, "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you don't fool me again."
And Remzo, but the biggest point is, Remzo, the major difference, by the way, is this is alleged and supposedly.
Look at Perry Mason. Every person he defends is accused credibly of murder. Hamilton Berger says they've got him dead to rights. This one, yes, they've lost 120 in a row before this. This one they can't lose. Perry always wins, and the guy's always innocent. So meanwhile, here's this Cuomo, who I agree is a scumbag.
He's not a pervert. He's just Italian.
I don't like him at all. But he is not a criminal by any stretch of the imagination that I have seen.
Except for the nursing home.
That I agree about but to look a woman upside down, to rub her back while she's in an elevator, and the Taliban is going to be taking over a country, making it lawful to rape little girls. What? And the Me Too people are saying nothing about it. What the hell is going on?
Gary Collins, hold on a second. He brings up a great point, Gary, because I just want to get to you about this. It's such an exceptional point. And it's really always the point, right? We have these. We in this country, we sometimes look at the stupidest things. What people complain, and over there right now, what's going on with the women? Where are all the Squad members? Where are all the where is the national women's organizations, Gary Collins? Where are all these people knowing what's going to happen to these women and babies over there, Gary?
Well, it's twofold. They're missing another point. Is they just don't rape the women and little young women. They rape little boys too, and that's a fact.
Yeah,
these people are straight up fucking evil. It's evil as it gets. And the Squad or mob or where the hell those group of village idiots is called, maybe what's her face can go marry another brother, but you know what it is. They actually blamed it. They blamed it on white people and white supremacy and us invading other countries.
And the climate
and climate change. Yeah, let's just throw it. It's the constant theme, Ben Stein. This is what they have in their arsenal: racist, climate change, just
sexism,
wokeism, cancel culture. This is their agenda. These are the bullets that they have in their chamber. Now, I pray, Ben, as I'm looking at the polling with independent voters at 49% are really shifting. I am praying that they are looking at this at the Glock of destruction, the Glock agenda. By the of their bullets being, I pray that most of the American people are actually waking up.
I hope so, but even if they're not, we are, and we're going to keep talking about it, and we're going to keep singing about it, and talking about it, and marching about it. Why why aren't the Republicans in Congress marching about it? My God, we have 50 Republican senators. Even the cancel culture, even the ultra left wing, Iron Curtain monolith popular culture could not deny coverage if we had 50 Republican senators marching in front of the White House saying, save the women and girls of Afghanistan. Do something for Mr. President. Get your thumb out of your ass and do something.
Focusing primarily on Afghanistan, I've got a story. My father was in Iraq during the surge for 15 months in 2006. And at the time, you know, I had some friends I was hanging out with, and one of their friends who would sometimes come play with us, we were kids at the time, his dad was in the telecommunications industry, and he was a contractor, and what he would do was he actually would fly into Iraq for 3 months out of the year. And what he would do is he would set up cable and satellite TV for not just American soldiers and contractors, but also for high-profile Iraqi politicians and figures.
No,
so
Iranian,
he was basically Iraqi, yeah. So Iraqi. So he would go to Iraq, and basically he was the cable guy. And when he left, he was making not that much money. They weren't a rich family, but when he came back, he was buying grills. Remember the gold teeth and everything? He bought a new truck. He was wearing new Oakleys all the time. He had a Rolex. He bought his wife new boobs. Their whole life changed. And he did that every year starting in 2003. And when he came back in 2006, he'd spend an extra month there. So what he actually did was he quit his job, and he was like, I don't have to work for 10 years if I don't want to. And he looked at my mom at the time, and he said, you know, I hope we never leave Iraq. This has been great for me.
Yep.
And I heard that, and that stuck with me. And we talk about, you know, why don't these guys care about those guys, and why aren't they talking about it? We're all looking at the end result. We're looking at the stuff that happens in daylight. But what we often ignore is the stuff that happens behind the closed doors. The plan for Afghanistan was to stay in Afghanistan for as long as humanly possible. So that way, the contractors and the defense industrial complex and everything else and all these other people could make as much money as possible. That's why even in Iraq today, we have more private military contractors in Iraq than anywhere else in the world. Yet we pulled out combat operations out of Iraq almost 9 years ago. And are we ever going to get to the point where we won't have to go ahead and spend trillions of our tax dollars to make sure some guy can go ahead and buy his wife a new set of tits?
Well, here's a fact. Here's a fact. We spend more on our defense. Lord, we spend more money on defense than the 11 most developed countries. So we have 1 through 11, right? Or 12. We're number 1. We spend more than the next 11 below us combined.
Yeah, but
that's on the books, Ben. That's on the books. But that's not black. That's not black budget. But that is ridiculous. That is fucking ridiculous.
But part of that is because we pay our people so much more.
No. You don't
think we pay our people much more than the Chinese or Russians pay their soldiers?
We pay them more, but how do we spend more than Russia, China, than 9 other developed countries?
Is that our people are paid much more, and that number includes pensions, and that's a very large number. Yeah, and that number includes health care.
Ben, when I was in the military, I was an E3. I made $600 a month.
Well, what do you think you would make as an E3 in China?
I guarantee not much less. It's gotten a lot better, but I'm going to tell you right now that that's not where the money's going, Ben. I'm a veteran. I go to the VA. I can't go to the VA. I have to use my own private insurance because the VA is a fucking mess, and I can't even get in. There are people without arms and legs who can't get prosthetics because the VA is that screwed up. Don't tell me for a goddamn second it's spent on the soldiers. It is not.
Well, what is it spent on, Gary? What's it spent on?
It's spent on MRAPs that never make it to country. It is spent on $8,000 hammers. I was there. I watched the guys. Ben, if the taxpayer knew what goes on the side of procurement in the military, Not only that, but as a federal agent, it didn't change much. I used to get a
I
new
bought a
laser
folding chair for $500 one time.
Yeah,
Because
it is
instead of
ridiculous,
going to
Ben.
Lowe's, we had a
I'm going
pre-approved
to
thing.
respectfully disagree and say, I know people who my wife's father was a military man. My wife's uncle was a military man. They sure weren't overpaid. They sure didn't live lavish lives. Their children sure didn't live lavish lives. My wife didn't live a lavish life until she met me.
No, but he's not referring to the rank and file. He's not referring to
no. Yeah.
to the common foot soldier, Ben. He's referring to bring up the Rolling Stones again. He's referring to everybody else.
The hardworking people.
Yes, he's referring to the hardworking people. And listen, this is what makes our show special. We could agree, we could disagree, we could have discourse, and
then afterwards we will go and get high.
Well, here's a fact. Here's a fact, Ben. I made more working 30 hours, 30, 35, depending in college. I worked almost full time to get myself through college. I made more money in going through college than I did in the military my first 2 years. Try that out.
I don't understand the point.
I'm telling you.
What he's saying is the money that's being spent.
It's not being spent on the soldiers.
It's all top heavy, I think, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
I had actually bought like a $500 folding chair one time, because what they did when I first went in to my first company when I commissioned, was one thing I had to do is I had to order new supplies for the armory. And what they do is they give you a pre-approved, book that has all the items that you're pre-approved to buy. And when I'm looking at these items, I'm like, why is a folding chair like $500 in some cases? We can go to Lowe's right now and buy folding chairs. And they said, because if we don't
you can't go outside a contract. Yeah.
If we don't spend the money, we're never getting it back again.
Ben, and when I was a federal agent, I was me and another guy. We ran our office. We ran a whole region, which was a big state, two of us. And we would get 3 new laser printers every single goddamn year. And we had, our evidence room had 27 laser printers in it. And we finally told them, stop sending us new printers. Goddamn, we don't need any more new printers.
Well, do you think the United States is overarmed?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, we just lost 600,000 weapons. 600,000.
Do you think we are presently overarmed?
No.
Yes.
No, in a way.
If the Russians invaded Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, would we be overarmed to take them on?
You're misinterpreting. It's not about being overarmed. We're not overarmed. We're overpaying for the technology that we get. We're getting the best sometimes. The technology, you talk to anyone, me in law enforcement and in the military, we always used to laugh that civilians had the criminals always had better technology than we had. And it was because we pay 10 to 100 times more for old technology, and they're going out and buying new technology off the shelf. It's ridiculous, Ben. Ben, I'm telling you, if you knew how it worked, you would lose your mind.
And I think that both of you agree.
I appreciate the idea that you're going to inform me.
No, but both of you agree on one thing, that the military should be extremely armed and we should have the greatest military in the world.
Oh, 100%.
The Gary and you agree on that 100%. What Gary is simply saying, Ben, is if all the money that we spend, on the technology, if we saw an accounting for this, we'd all have sticker shock. Ben, who one of my favorite stories when your father bought that car and you managed to get the sales price down on that car, right? You haggled.
Many cars.
What?
Many cars.
Many cars. And you do a very good job in getting the right price on that car.
Well, I'm a Jew, for Christ's sake.
You find the exact interest, everything. This is your business. It's your wheelhouse. I think the biggest point Gary is trying to make is people, because it's not their money, Ben, they don't care how much they're spending.
I understand.
Ben, we spent over $1 billion on an embassy. I've been in numerous
Yeah.
I
embassies
know, but
and
that was
consulates.
one embassy.
I know.
Oh, no.
Every embassy.
Oh, Ben, if you knew how much money goes into the construction of these embassies and you stood foot in them,
Except for the
I've
one
stood
in
them.
Jerusalem, built by Trump, which I think he did for about 250 grand. And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein.
Ben Stein loves the military and wants us. If they waste half of it, we have to give them twice as much.
Well, let's look at it this way, Ben. Cowboy Stadium was built for under $1 billion. It has the biggest big screen TV on the face of the earth, and it holds like 100,000 people. But our embassy costs more than that.
I know, but the embassy has to have special places to bring call girls.
Listen. At the end of the day, Ben's thing, he doesn't care. He wants as much money to go to the military, even if they're screwing around and being dipshits about the money. I get what Gary's saying. I get what Remzo's saying. On a different subject, I just wanted to, as we're wrapping up the show, I was thinking about Jeffrey Epstein the other day. And
he
I was
didn't
thinking,
kill himself.
Yes, I know he didn't kill
I'm
himself.
sorry, that again. What?
He didn't kill himself.
Of course,
I just had to say it.
Of course, he was murdered.
But
Murdered.
Wait. I think we all agree on that one.
Yes. My bigger question is, Ben, it is a very popular Jewish name. Now, if your name was Jeffrey Epstein,
oh no,
would you change it?
Yes.
Well, that reminds me of a really wonderful story. My wife's best friend is a very, very, very successful writer of mysteries. And she was once invited to lunch by a guy named, she got an email from a guy named Harvey Weinstein saying, I love your books. I think we could make a whole series of movies about it. And let's have lunch at such and such a place. She was so excited. She called Alex, my wife, and me, and she said, I'm so excited. She went to have lunch with the guy. He turned out to be a dentist who just happened to have the same name. And he had nothing to do with the movie business at all.
That's actually very funny. And I wonder if that Harvey Weinstein wants to change his name, because there's a, it's like I always thought about this after the name Jean Benet, right? It probably people stop naming their children Jean Benet. And I got to be honest. I mean, Gary, you're sort of screwed because it's such a popular name, and Remzo, I don't know. Is Remzo Martinez a popular name?
Very popular.
There are three of there were four of us, but one died recently. The third one is somewhere in Morovis, Puerto Rico, and then there's my father and I. So now we're down to three because I think Remso 4 kicked the bucket a year ago.
Wait, I want to know what happened to Giselle or whatever. Where's she at?
Oh, Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah. Ghislaine. That's
yeah.
Another fraud. Nothing happened there either.
What do you mean? Which part? That she didn't do anything?
What did she do? I mean, you guys, I will say this. People think mistakenly, very mistakenly, that I'm rich. Very mistakenly. I'm really very poor. But people think I'm rich. Girls throw themselves at me like mad insanity. And that's the same with all these people.
I have the same problem.
All these stories. I have to lead a quiet life. I just have to close my doors and lead a quiet life.
But what happened? I want to know, where is she at, and why is she not being interrogated and talking?
What did she do wrong? What did she do? Wrong?
No, she didn't do wrong. I don't know if she did anything wrong, but I know she was right there.
Well, she is in prison right now because Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison right now, awaiting, I would imagine, a trial.
Accidental hanging.
But her father, Mr. Robert Maxwell, he was a genuine committer of financial fraud, and he was murdered by being thrown off a boat and attached to an anchor or something like that. Yeah, he was murdered.
I never knew that he was murdered because I would happen. You're probably right because he was murdered. Right. It says it's suicide, but Ben Stein's probably Ben Stein's always correct. I just thought I'd add a little.
I don't know. Again. How do you get suicide drowning by anchor?
Because they say he fell overboard.
It's like Gary
if you fall
Bauer.
overboard and you're tied to an anchor, you're going to drown.
It's like Gary Bauer, who worked for the Los Angeles Times in the 90s, who uncovered that the CIA was, involved in Iran-Contra and selling cocaine to the inner cities. And then when he killed himself, he shot himself in the back of the head twice.
No, it's horrible.
And
Terrible.
as somebody noted, Ben, you are extremely rich in spirit. So
Thank you.
there you go.
And knowledge.
And knowledge. And what I love about the show, like I said it again, and I'll always say this, is that we can agree, we could disagree, we could have discourse. It's what separates us from the left. On the left, there is no discourse. If you disagree with them, you are canceled. You fear you retribution. And that's what separates, for the most part, most conservatives from leftists. We do not believe in retribution. And the reason I bring that up, Ben Stein, I was thinking today, is Jesse Jackson is suffering severely from COVID. And now he's in a home with his Parkinson's. As much as I despise the man, I do not for a moment in time wish him or his wife death. I wish them nothing but a speedy recovery. And I could honestly say you have leftists that when Greg Abbott and Lindsey Graham, whoever it is you like or dislike, pray for those people, Ben Stein.
You bet.
And
you know what? If your enemy wrongs you 76 times, forgive him 76 times. And if he wrongs you the 77th time, forgive him a 77th time. I learned that from Mike Visser, one of the most wonderful people on the face of the earth, and his wife, Nancy Visser, another one of the most wonderful people on the earth.
And on that note, Mike's a great guy. And on that note, we have run out of time. Remzo Martinez, please tell people where you could find your podcast.
The same aisle where they can get ISIS K cereal. On the run, new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Second Print Comics every Wednesday.
And it's really great to see you.
We have missed you.
We have missed you. And
I'm back more often. I've been traveling for everything, and it's good to be back in one place for more than a couple of days. I told you the next time I see you, I want a picture of you with Mr. Baseball. That's all I want to see.
I agree.
Bob Uecker, he's in front of the stadium or inside the stadium. Get a picture with Mr. Baseball.
Go Brewers.
Gary Collins from thesimplelifenow.com. Great podcast. I encourage everybody to download it. He had a great episode with Rob.
Yours is coming out.
Mine is coming up, and we will put that up on the newsletter. And of course, you can find Ben Stein, benstein.substack.com, but also keep downloading the episodes. As Remzo says, leave a great review. Also give it that 5-star rating. It is extremely helpful for us. Take your friend's phone, as Remzo would also suggest, and do it to their phone. You can find Ben Stein also spectator.org, Newsmax, and anywhere. Ben Stein is all around the country because he travels so much. He's the traveling Jew and traveling He's the sixth Wilbury. Ben Stein, please take us out on this fine Saturday night.
Well, you can knock me down, step on my face, slander my name all over the place. You can do anything that you want to do, but honey, step away, get off of my shoes, and don't you step on my blue suede shoes. Well, you can do anything, but lay off of my blue suede shoes.
God bless. Have a great night, everybody. Be safe. We will see you